Welcome to the KP Podcast, where we talk about the business of real estate. A podcast about leveraging opportunities, growing your business, and experiencing financial freedom. Here are your hosts, Keith Anderson and Peter Cambukos.
Good morning, guys. Good morning, everybody. We got last couple coming in, but I want to get started because I got a lot of slides to go through because we never have any shortage of things on this again. So real quick, for those of you that haven't heard me say it, we'll start off with the real estate stats from second quarter. We'll go into some economic numbers and do the second half on projects, news, and stuff going on around the valley. But we'll go over that stuff here. So I'm going to get going real quick in a second. Guys, if you have questions as we're going, raise your hands. Let me know. So, second quarter real estate stats. I just want to start off with some of these like we usually do to talk about what happened in the last quarter, where we're at now. So, total sales up in the second quarter, up 19.5% from the first quarter. Remember, for those of you that were here and we talked about it, the sales transaction sides bottomed out in December. So we had talked about that. We saw the whole half of 2022 coming down pretty substantially. That bottomed out in December. We talked about when that happened and we said that was the bottom. And sure enough, we saw it go up in the first quarter, continue up sales rate in the second quarter. We're still trending down, about 20-25%, depending on the number you want to use, of normal, lower than normal, but up in the last two quarters. So new listings down, as you all can feel, as we've been seeing that inventory do nothing but decline in the first half of this year, and we'll see some charts on that. So new listings came in at 20,307, down 10.5% from just the first quarter, which was already low. Average sales price was $572,492, so up 7.2% from the quarter. So don't get confused with these numbers. We're going to talk about the appreciation rates as we go, but this is quarter over quarter. So the average price from the first quarter to the second quarter was up over 7%. Part of why we do this as well is, you guys see stuff, or your clients see stuff in the media that tells them prices are going down or prices are going up, and a lot of times we always point out they're looking at the wrong numbers or not reading it correctly. And so I'll have a good visual. You guys will get these slides. So if you do have clients that are asking about that, you can show them the visual and how the media is reporting it, what they're looking at, and what's actually happening. So you guys will have that when you're done. Median sales price, $437,000, again, up 4.9%. That's quarter over quarter. So year over year appreciation. So you can see what we're saying. It went up in the first quarter, both the median and the average, but if we're comparing from a year ago, so year over year, so we're saying with the second quarter of last year compared to the second quarter of this year, down 4.8%. So remember, second quarter of 2022, which is what we're comparing, that was the absolute peak. So that was the top. You'll see it in the chart. So we're down 4.8% off the top there, but up 2.8% in the second quarter for the year. And new construction sales increased 7.4%. New construction is now making up the largest portion of overall sales that it has in over 20 years. And that's because we don't have any inventory. So new construction sales continues to climb, continues to be a larger percentage of sales than they typically are. Crawford Market Index, this was the last one we did in April, on April 18th, so I want to show you guys the comparison. So again, for those that don't know, Crawford Market Index is a leading indicator, and I'm going to show you a chart in a minute here on that. So over 100 is a market going up, under 100 or right around 100 is balanced, and below that in the red is negative. Same with supply and demand. You guys can think about that as percentage of normal. So it was saying we had about 58% of normal supply and about 82% of normal demand. This was back in April, so I'm going to show you how that compares to now. So you can see the demand trending down, supply trending down, and the market index was trending up. Okay, so here's where we are now. So you guys can see, so if I go, let me see. So if you look at the supply, right, 58 down to 48, but leveling out. If you compare it to this one where it's coming straight down. Okay, so now same thing, market index, a lot choppier and coming down, demand coming down. So even though we were at 140 with the market index, and here we're at 160. It's because in the second quarter, we ramped this up. Supply was coming down, demand had evened out, and now as we're into this third quarter, we're seeing the choppiness of this because the supply is starting to even out and demand is decreasing over here. Okay, so this just gives you a little bit of a snapshot, guys, as we go into it. Nationally, let's talk about some inventory nationally and locally. So this dark red line is this year. Okay, and you can see kind of on here, but it doesn't really matter which year it is. Basically, all of them are above that. And so not only is that happening locally, and I'll show you that chart, but you can see nationally where they actually did have a little bit of spike at the beginning of the year, leveling out, but the listings are far fewer than anything that we've had in recent years, at least going back to 2018. So again, inventory all across the country, not just in the Phoenix area, not coming online. So inventory staying constrained. Here is ours locally. We're the purple line this year. And you guys have heard me talk about before. I mean, look at this thing come just straight down, starting to finally, and I mean, we're in August, and this thing is finally starting to level out. So we usually get the bump at the beginning of the year, then it'll come down. The seasonality curves will go like this. More something like this where the seasonality curve comes up. We talked about in the last market update and in between, I told you guys it was being pushed out this year because of market forces. So that's exactly what we ended up seeing. You guys saw July closings. That was one of the highest July closing numbers. That's right, I was talking about it with you, Tuna, that we've seen in years. And so we did see that get pushed out a couple of months, but we will still see the seasonality. So now what it's looking like, that curve just got pushed a little bit. It looks like our supply did finally bottom out here, and looks like it's starting to touch up. And I say that cautiously because every time we think it might, it comes back down. But it does look like it's leveled out for a little while here and could be coming back up. That seasonality curve tells us that this thing is going to go up and top out here towards the end of September, beginning of October. We see it come back down through the end of the year. So we're not going to get a ton, but in these coming months here, in the next couple of months, we should see some more, a little bit more supply coming on. This is where we're at as of the end of June, 1.99. Now, one thing I want to point out here, this is why I want to give color on all of these. Traditionally and historically, they say 6 months is a balanced market. We follow this stuff pretty closely, guys, and one of the points that I made earlier this year is that that's no longer the case. And so things are constantly changing, both in the world, in the industry, and everything. And so you can see here that during that slowdown, we topped out at just over 4 months. As Keith and I have been looking at these and I've been following it, our contention is that about 4 to 4.5 months is now normal supply in this market. It's not 6 months. Things move faster. Everybody's got access, as you guys all know, with your clients. Everybody's got access to that information. Transaction times are shorter than they used to be and continue to fall. People are able to make those decisions and move quicker. They're able to match people up with these properties. People know what they want a lot quicker. The 6 month, that's been a standard that they've used here for the last 40, 50 years. And that's no longer the case. So if we see us up around 4 to 4.5 months, and I think you'll probably start to see other people notice it as we go forward, that's a balanced market in our opinion here in the Phoenix area. Nonetheless, we're way below. We're sitting, like I said, just a touch, basically 2 month supply here at the end of June. And here's a big reason why. You guys have seen charts like this before. Most outstanding mortgages have a rate below 6%. That's only, so less than 4%, 96%, if you want to think about it that way, have mortgage rates under 6%. So this is when they talk about that lock-in effect, whether they want to call it a lock-in, they can't afford to move. Remember, statistically, 80% of sellers are also buyers. So if they can't sell because they can't afford to sell, they can't buy. That's why we don't have any inventory. That's why we don't have this flood. That's why the folks who kept calling for a crash, and we've been saying this for a year and a half or more now, they're not looking at supply and demand. They're only looking at one side of the equation. They're doing it all the time. They're looking at it with Airbnb. They're not taking the whole picture and seeing what's happening because every single time is different. every single time. And we'll go into exactly what's happening in our market right now, which is confusing people, because you see some things and you go, well, this should be happening, but it's not. Well, why not? Okay, on inventory, so longer term backdrop, guys, this is what we talk about. This is what we've been looking at for years, okay? So you can see this goes back to 1986. You can see where the inventory was, this drop. Look at this massive insanity for those of us that were around when all the dishwashers were flipping 18 homes at a time and all kinds of cool stuff was going on. Really interesting. I mean, for those that haven't seen The Big Short, that's a documentary in my opinion. That's 100% true in there. So the insanity that you see was happening here. But this is what we're talking about, guys. Look at this, right? Keith, to your point, those builders in here said, well, we're not going to do that thing again. And that inventory has been steadily declining for well over a decade. And just last year, we saw that little bump. And we were like, oh man, we're going to get back to something normal. And then they said, nope. And it came right back down. Sorry, this is the regular inventory. I'll show you the builders, but the point is, look at this inventory, guys. It's been declining. So this is why when we were talking about, people were like, oh, the pandemic, why do we have this sudden shortage? I'm like, yeah, this sudden shortage that's been about 13 years in the making. So sudden to some people has been going on for a very long time. So here's the single family apartments that we're talking about. So again, you notice it, the glut here, you notice it dropped. So look at this from the peak in 05 down to that trough right about at the end of 09, beginning of 2010. Then we've had this, again, underbuilding this entire time. We finally got back to a normal level here, just right there, and then dropped again. Because the moment last year, and we kept looking at these, the moment, and this one was the one where we were saying, guys, we're going to be in trouble. Because last summer, about June, when they saw rates start spiking, those transaction counts completely fall, almost all the builders put a complete halt on everything. They stopped dead in their tracks because they were like, we're not going to do this and we're not getting caught. They stopped dead. And they didn't start again until just in the last couple of months. And so now they're behind. They worked, like we said, they worked through that backlog. They don't have that backlog anymore. They also don't have any resale to compete against. They just now started building, and look at where they are. And they're not going up here. They're going to keep this. They're, like I said, they're running a business and they're moving product. So a little bit of increase, yes, but unless rates drop dramatically, and even if they do, it won't solve the whole problem, but this is going to take years to get us enough inventory. Because remember, one of the things we talk about is resale is available properties, but new inventory for our demographic growth and the numbers we're going to look at here, that comes from new construction. If we're not adding new homes and new construction, we're not adding total inventory. We're talking about what's available for resale. That's stuff that's already there. You know, we use the example of cars. You know, if Ford's building new cars, there are new cars available to be bought. If they are not, if they're shut down and all you can buy is used cars, well, all you've got is what's out there. Now, more and more people keep fighting for what's out there. You've got to have the builders bring on new supply, otherwise we can't solve that problem. Sales price. Here's a good one, and I don't know if you guys want to send this to anybody, especially the crash folks, but here was their crash right here. So this was the peak last year that we talked about, where we're comparing year over year. That drop was about 5% from the peak. But if you go year over year, we actually didn't see a decline. We saw the annual appreciation was up last year. The annual appreciation is trending up this year. So if I zoom out and say, does this continue? And I look back at this 20 years and somebody tells me that prices dropped here, I'm going to say where? Because all we saw was a price drop from the absolute peak. It came down here, ended up still in the positive year over year, and is now, if you guys can follow this, higher than where we were. So we're actually up above that. This is the national chart, and this is the one that I've shown a few people that I think illustrates really well what we hear in the media. Okay, so follow me on this and you'll see exactly what we're seeing. The light line in the back is last year, the dark line is this year. Okay, so this is nationally median price of homes newly in contract. So we see two things. We see last year, like we said, when we hit the peak, you see that faded one in the back going up tremendously and going up higher than where we are this year. But if you look at this year, nationally, there was a tiny little bump here at the beginning, and it's been going up since then. And over here, where we had June, where everything stopped, last year went down, this year crossed over. So here's why I'm showing you this, and here's what's important for this part and what's going to happen here. What you see I get these videos sent to me from YouTube. I just had one a week ago. And you hear it in the media, and the media goes, prices are down. And I look at this chart and I go, well, from here to here, no, I'm not super smart, but that looks like it's up. So this year, prices are actually up. But what they're looking at is they're like, but last year was up higher. So if I compare the price increases in the first half of this year to the price increases in the first half of last year, they're 5% lower. Therefore, media, YouTuber, prices are down 5%. No, they're not. And here's what's going to happen as well, because here's what they're not going to get. Well, that second half of last year, the prices did come down. They came down, and transaction count came down, and everything came down in the second half. That's why we say it's down 5% off that peak, because here's what happened. We're coming down. But look at where we are now. So now we've got prices that are up above that. But what we're going to see in our market, guys, is our prices are going to start easing into the end of the year, and we're already starting to see signs of it. Prices are going to start to come down a little bit here. Not crashing, but the seasonality and the market that we have with the interest rates, these prices are coming down. But they're probably going to stay above what they were last year. So now you're going to have the media and these YouTubers going, prices are up. When in reality, we're looking at it and we go, no, prices are actually coming down now. So they're going to make the mistake that they made here over here because of the way they're comparing it. Why this is an issue for us is because now you have clients going, I hear prices are coming down. And we're out in the market going, they've been up every single month this year. And then they're going to be here, and if you've got somebody trying to list it, they go, I hear prices are going up. Well, in reality, they're going down month over month at this point. So it's important to understand the relationship. And again, you guys will have this visual, and this is what they're looking at over here. So on a year over year basis, we're not up as much as we were last year. So off the peak, we're down 5%. But prices have been increasing both in our market and nationally every single month for the first half of this year. So this is ours, and this is what we talk about. This is a good one to look at, average list price per square foot. The only time I ever use per square foot, as those of you that know me, is when we're looking at the entire market. Meaning, how do I compare, a $10 million Paradise Valley to a condo in South Phoenix? Our average list price per square foot trends really, really well and has for years with our final sales prices, usually within 98 to, in the crazy years, 103%. So whatever it is, we're really close. So what this is a leading indicator. We can see this leading indicator in the whole first half was telling us prices are going up, prices are going up, prices are going up. Topped out as a leading indicator, we can see prices are going to start coming down. And so again, you can see it every year with the seasonality curve as well. But this is what we're talking about. We'll see the prices ease here. We're feeling that now, and they'll level out into the end of the year over here. So this is a great leading indicator, because even though we started to turn here, this is what went in contract. We still saw prices holding, and this is telling us this is what's coming. And so that's coming now and in the future months. The last one I want to show on this, guys, is the Cromford Market Index. We look at it because it's a leading indicator. So there is blue shaded in here. It's light blue shaded. But what you will notice is it precedes each appreciation and precedes each depreciation. And so every incline and every decline, it is preceded by this. So the black line here is the Cromford Market Index. So we see it come down, then we see the prices come down, then prices. Same thing all the way here. So what are we seeing now is, you can't see this, but you'll see it on the slides. We actually have year over year prices down with the Cromford Market Index that has now gone back up. And so we typically see that lead lag of about 6 months. So what that, again, is leading to tell us is we started the year off saying, hey, we're looking at slightly down to a flat market. First half came in much stronger than we were thinking, than I think anyone was thinking, even especially with these rates. And so now we're looking at flat to slightly up, because we had a good first half, but the second half we're going to see these prices that we're already seeing them easing out. And so we'll probably end up somewhere around flat to up a couple of percentage for the year. Pent-up demand, guys, this is one that we talk about all the time. There's people out there talking about supply that's coming on that does not exist. but the pent-up demand is real. It's a very real thing. This is just one slide, and we'll have more. But you look at, this is from Zonda that does the research for new builds. But you look at what they're seeing, and again, it's hard to see on some of these, but these are the years going past, and these are people who expect to move within the next 2 years. So what that is you can see all these years going back to 2014, and then look at this huge number last year and this year of people going, yeah, I plan to move in the next 2 years. And the reason is they're getting stuck. Affordability is an issue. And so they're either having to purchase something they don't want to, or they're having to rent, or they're having to move in with somebody, or they're having to do something they don't want to do. They're delaying it, and that pent-up demand is growing. The thing that I talk about quite often, which I think is important, is houses are not stocks, and a lot of times we see folks try to treat it as such, as if you can just sell your home if you think it's going to go down, and I suppose go live on the corner in a box. Well, that doesn't happen, because most people out here, they're not speculators, they're not investors, they just want a place to live. And there's not enough places to live for the amount of people we have. And so they're in situations they don't want to be in because they have affordability issues. Just because they want a house, I've said the buyer, remember guys, is somebody who's ready, willing, and able. We have buyers who are ready and willing, but they're not able right now. And so the pent-up demand continues to grow. And as we look at this demographic that I've been talking about for so long, it's not getting any better, it's gonna get worse. So look at where we are, and I don't know if you can see this, but we are hitting the peak for these millennials in the coming years. It tops out at 2030. So from now to the end of the decade, every single year, there is more and more and more people, more than ever, who are coming into that first-time homebuyer age, and we do not have inventory for them. They have to live somewhere. And so they're going to live somewhere. They're people, and they have to do something. And so that's the point. Are they going to stay at home with parents longer? Are they going to double up in apartments? Are they going to buy in places that they don't want to, trying to get to the next one as soon as they can? The answer is yes to every single one of those, and we're seeing it now. And what I'm saying is that's not getting any better until 2030. So these are continuing to go. Right now, you guys have heard me say before, the Fed and those interest rates, all they're doing is they're taking that volleyball, the beach ball, and they're pushing it down underneath the water, okay? And for all of us in a pool, we know what happens when they let that thing go. They can't fix the supply side. That's the problem here. That's why the folks who are paying attention are saying, let go of the zoning laws, make things easier, make it easier and cheaper for people to build and do things, solve the supply side, because until you do, you can suppress that buy side all you want. But the moment that they're able to buy, that ball's coming straight up. It's there. They can't, all they can do is suppress it. They can't get rid of it. And that's what we're seeing, which is also why people are confused. Well, why are prices still holding up? Why is this happening? Because, guys, there's a lot of people that need houses. Okay, some of these other highlights. This is a huge one, okay? And I don't hear people talking about this except in some, we've been fortunate enough to be on some calls with some folks, one of which is even on the President's Advisory Council, the United States President's Advisory Council for Housing. She brought this up, as well as some other folks that are working in government. The FHFA has essentially institutionalized forbearance and foreclosure. Okay, let me tell you what's happening. And I touched on this last time when they were coming in there. This goes into effect September 1st, and we don't hear a lot of talk about it. If you guys remember during COVID, they put in the national forbearance, and they said for people that are having issues, you can go into forbearance and we'll help you work it out at the beginning. Okay, well that was, bless you, one of the major reasons, like we said, guys, there's no foreclosures, they're gonna help these people work it out, and they did. The government looked at this and go, that program seemed to work pretty well. What if we expand this? And that's exactly what they did. So they have now expanded this, and what they're saying is, for all Fannie and Freddie products, you're not going to foreclosure. You can go into forbearance, and we're not gonna define what a hardship is. We're not gonna tell you why you can go in there. Essentially, you have trouble with your house, we don't want a bunch of homeless people. If we go into recession, if these rates are too high, we don't want a bunch of houses being dumped, you can go into forbearance, and we're not gonna ask you why. They've essentially institutionalized this. You're gonna start seeing this play out. You guys are getting a leg up. This is gonna start in September, And right now we don't have a big thing here, but when we go into that recession and people do start having trouble, then you're going to start hearing people talk about this. Hey guys, where are the foreclosures? How come there's no foreclosures? Because the FHFA is saying you could go in here and you could work it out with your lender. We could tack it on to the end. You could do whatever it needs to do and you won't lose your house. FHA is now, because Fannie and Freddie have done this and the FHFA has done it with them, FHA is saying we are now looking at this as well. And I would guess that FHA will be next. And so this is a massive, massive deal to go, guys. Once again, our government stepping in, you know, into a centrally planned system here where they're going, we're not going to let people fail. I'm not going to tell you whether I think that's good or bad. This is what they're doing. We have a record number of multifamily units under construction, 1 million nationally. That record is nationally and locally here in Arizona. Keith and I know multifamily developers here in Arizona who are not building here because they're seeing these numbers, but they're building in some other places. This is not single family, so everything we talked about that affects most of us is single family that we just looked at. But multifamily, and we've talked about that with some of the folks in here that are interested in that. We've been talking about that for the last year plus. They're in trouble. And we're going to look at some of those numbers as well. But there's a ton of multifamily coming on. And when you see some of the numbers of where their debt is as well, and some of the headlines you guys have probably saw, this side of things, they are having trouble. They will, and it's going to get worse over the next year for them. And I'll get into a little more. So investor sales, 12% of the sales in the second quarter. Remember last year, guys, we had a high where it was over 20%. I think it hit 25%, the all-time high. 12%, which is much more in line with normal. That typical number for us here in Phoenix is about 10 to 12%. Cash buyers, that was also down in the second quarter for the first time in years. This number has been running super high, 25, 30%. So the fact that that's down in the second quarter, that one is actually a little bit surprising to me, and just tells me that they're actually just holding off, because in this higher rate environment, we would typically see, like we did in the first quarter, in the fourth quarter of last year, larger number of cash sales with them going in there with cash now, knowing that they can just wait it out as long as they need. But we did see that drop down to 20%, which is still a very high number. And not only for us, again, this is typically down in the teens, closer to about 15% historically. But Phoenix usually, surprisingly to most people, runs higher than the national average with cash sales. So we are typically higher cash buyers here than most of the large cities around the country. Median rents, my God. Median rents, because you guys know, because all the folks who've been talking about it, and anyways, this one's a special place for me because we're in that world every day. Median rent's up 7% since the beginning of the year. So I hear about, here's what I point out. Every time I hear about rents going down, remember where they're getting that data, okay? I've had rental property for 20 years, and I'm in groups across the country. Between all of us, we own thousands of units with all the people I know. Not me, obviously, but all these people I know. Not a single one of us has ever been asked on these surveys what our rents are, what's our vacancy. They don't call us. They're getting it from here. They're getting it from the large multifamily companies, which makes sense. You know, they can call up one of these guys and get info, you know, on 10,000 units. That's different than what we're all seeing in here. What's happening in apartments, rents are compressing. They absolutely are, and they probably will continue. Annual appreciation right now, tracking at 5.9, meaning if we continued or ended the year right now, since the beginning of the year till now, we would be up, we would end the year up 5.9%. I don't think we'll be that high. I expect us to be lower than that. So depending on how much these prices ease into the end of the year, I think it will, we'll be in the low single digits increase here is the most probable scenario at this point. You know, we'll end up 2 or 3% here on the year. Let's look at some of these economic numbers. So unemployment rate nationally, 3.7%. That increased slightly nationally in the second quarter. It went from 3.5 to 3.2. Arizona's actually went down. So we were at 3.5, we dropped to 3.4. So Arizona has lower unemployment. Across the country, it went up ever so slightly. Inflation, 3%, down from 5% in quarter one. You guys will see a nice chart on that. Fed funds rate is currently at 5.5%, and for some unknown reason, they're continuing to raise. And They're going to go till something breaks because that's what they do. Current spread between mortgages and the 10-year right now is about 3%, historically 1.7. The LEI, leading economic indicators, fell again. It's now fallen for 15 months in a row. I'm going to show you this chart. So somebody had asked me the question last time, who decides whether we're in a recession? And so the answer is the NBER, the National Board of Economic Research. This is their indicator. So this goes back to 1959. Again, you can't unfortunately see it. There are gray bars here with every recession. Their leading economic indicators has declined before every single recession, going all the way back to 1959 when it was created. So every single time, 100% of the time, when these LEIs have declined, and we've seen this decline now for 15 months in a row, it has led to a recession. And so this is the actual indicator used by the official folks in the United States that will declare when a recession is happening. Here's the nice chart of the inflation rate. So again, you can see it back to July. We were as high as even before that, almost 10%, but you can see the nice steady decline. This is for all the folks that just keep looking at the Federal Reserve. So here is their official stances since 2020. March of 2020, inflation won't be a problem. January 2021, inflation is transitory. September 2021, interest rates won't rise until 2024. January 2022, a recession is needed to lower inflation. December 2022, disinflation has begun. February, a soft landing is possible. March, the banking system is stable. That was right before the banks crashed. Now, Fed no longer expects a recession. And so you guys have also heard me say for a long time, they have an unbelievable batting average, nearly 100%. It's impressive of how wrong they are. They are wrong almost 100% of the time with the statement. So when I hear Powell going, we're going to need to keep raising rates for a long time, there's no recession. A lot of us look back and go, literally everything that comes out of your mouth is wrong, every single time. A couple of headlines. I don't know if some of you, I just have two. So this one, Pretium. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Pretium, a big firm, pays $1.5 billion to D.R. Horton to buy 4,000 rental properties scattered across the South. Dallas City Council bans short-term rentals. So if you guys were here at our last quarterly market update, we talked about how Dallas was the first city that was discussing it. And we said, we got to keep a close eye on this, because if they actually do it, you're going to have other places that follow. Now, you guys know some of them, LA County says you can only have one. There are other places that limit how many you can have as well, or a lot of rules around them. Dallas is the first one that we're aware of that has banned it within the city of Dallas. Say no short-term rentals in single-family zone. They are only allowed in multifamily, and even then they are limiting the number. Okay, so some of these market conditions before we go into the other stuff. Inventory appears to have bottomed. We should see a top out again with that seasonality, guys, late September, early to mid-October in there. Demand is declining as we've seen rates coming up. You can see it on that demand index that I had at the beginning there, the dashboard. Inflation's been declining steadily. You guys saw that chart. 1.5 trillion in commercial debt across the country expires by the end of 2025. That is a massive, massive number. So this is why it becomes an issue. And why do we care on our side of the world? Because the majority of people, the lenders that have lent to them, are a lot of the same lenders that are lending to everyone else in businesses, auto loans, mortgages, etc. Not the direct mortgage banks, but they're in that world. If they start to get defaults on their loans, foreclosures, etc., they tighten up those lending standards. That leads to other businesses who are doing well having trouble getting financing. Developers who are fine, but now it's harder for them to get a loan because the banks are being more cautious, they're taking losses, etc. This starts to filter out into other things. We always say nothing's an island unto itself. Everything is kind of attached over there. So recessions and job losses, guys, remain the main risk in our world. And you guys saw that pent-up demand is there, but that affordability is a constant constraint. So it'll just keep getting pushed out. They'll do things. People will figure it out. They'll do what they need to do, not what they want to do. But that means that pent-up demand is still there. Okay, so looking ahead. Still expect the year-over-year pricing to be flat to slightly up. We do expect those prices to ease into the end of this year. They're talking about one more rate hike. I give up with this rate hikes. They should have stopped a long time ago. Bond market has been wrong on this one too. They didn't think they were going to do the last one. They did. Expectation now is 50-50 on this next potential hike. Expecting all those indicators are telling us mild recession. So one of the things that we've been looking at over the last year, we really haven't had the answer until just recently as we're starting to get closer and see these numbers, we would say, yeah, we're expecting that recession. It got pushed back a little bit, and the question was never, and still isn't in our mind, is it coming? It was always going to be, is it mild, or is it going to be a little bit more serious? Every indication that we're seeing now saying that recession's still here. It's probably going to be the end of this year into next year is when it begins, but everything about it looks like this is going to be a mild one. This is going to be something small. This is not something, we don't have any indicator showing us that this is the big one like I keep seeing on YouTube that's coming. That one's coming later. We'll talk about it when it does, but that's not here and that's not now. So the lock-in effect's keeping the supply low, but demand is also low. So low supply and low demand, they're offsetting each other, and that's what's happening. The rates are keeping that demand so low that you would say if we did have a lot of supply, they'd be flooding the market. But at that same thing with those interest rates and those mortgages locked in, it's keeping the demand low. We don't have builders coming on. We had low supply to begin with from the last 10 years. So that low supply keeps meeting that low demand. And if you guys saw, I don't know if you noticed the numbers, the sales we had in the second quarter versus the new listings we had in the second quarter, even though sales are down 20% year over year, we still sold more homes than came to market than new listings came. So that's exactly what we're talking about. The new stuff coming in is so low that even with this low transaction count and sales number and demand low, it's still eating away at that number because they're both so low. And the last one, like I said every time, remember, every time is different. It's never going to be exactly the same. You guys saw it, the groundwater report was released, the new one. We did the old one was released in January. We updated on that one in the last update. Then we had the new one come out June 1st. Report stated that Arizona would be nearly 5 million acre feet. Who remembers that from school, from the real estate courses? What's an acre foot? 5 million acre feet short of groundwater in the next 100 years based on the current growth plans unless other sources were secured. So that equals about roughly a 4% shortage. So it's saying over the next 100 years, based on all the growth plans that we currently have, we will end up about 4% short over the next 100 years based on that groundwater. So then, this was the headline everybody heard about. Governor announced a pause on new assured water supply certificates that rely on groundwater. If you guys don't know what this is, every time a developer plans a new community and goes in to start building, they have to get an assured water supply certificate. And that assured water supply certificate says, hey, you're going to build 300 homes here. You have secured enough water for this community for the next 100 years. That's what that is. And every community that gets built has to have this. So the governor is saying, we're pausing any new ones on this. But pause does not affect industrial or commercial construction or any development outside the management area, and I'll show you that in a second. So it doesn't affect any industrial or commercial, and it doesn't affect anything that's already existing. So 2 cities were affected in the valley. So it's Queen Creek and Buckeye. I don't know if you guys heard those on there. Based on what they had there were about 100,000 homes that were affected. But remember, this is what's planned. So they got plans in both Buckeye and Queen Creek that are going out 30 years. So it's not like this is 100,000 homes that are under construction now. They're saying we have these massive developments between Buckeye and Queen Creek that we expect to add these 100,000 homes over the next 30 years or so. Those are the ones that were affected. Queen Creek's about 8% short. They're looking at new renewable sources for that. Buckeye did secure an additional 6,000 acre feet per year for the next 100-year private water rights that they have up there. And so Buckeye was already, even before this came out, working on getting the additional supply. They're good for the next 30 years now, but they still have to work some more to fill the last part of the gap over there, but they're working on it, as is Queen Creek. As far as on a statewide level, The desalinization plant we've talked about before in Mexico is proceeding, so that will be another source. Colorado River Conservation Project is moving forward. If you guys remember when we went over that, they are looking to conserve 3 million acre feet by 2026, so just in the next couple of years. So that is the agreement that ended up happening between Southern California, Nevada, and Arizona. You know, what I'll say here is Arizona, if we're in a group project with Nevada and California and Arizona, Arizona's the A student doing all the work, and we're trying to drag these two schlubs along with us who are not pulling their weight, particularly Southern California, which is a disaster. In addition, the state received $40 million in a grant for the Arizona Water Resiliency Fund that's supposed to, you know, upgrade our systems and try to make things more efficient so that they can continue to conserve more of that water. We did have a winter this year with the most snowfall we've had in a long time, over a decade, so that helped contribute to it. So Astra Towers, you guys haven't heard, this is downtown. Downtown is changing tremendously. So the project is finally moving forward. This will be the tallest building in Phoenix. Skyline is changing, guys. If you look at here, this is another one. Just want to give you a couple examples. So this is the Central Park down, so that this is more Midtown, a little bit further up, but again, we're seeing a lot of this stuff. And so it got delayed. They moved this. You can see originally they were going to do a lot more office. They moved it and changed it to more residential. So they're going to do 1,450 multifamily units, and they will have a central hub, which is what's pictured here, called Central Park. Here's another one that got delayed and got sold. So this will be the largest resort in Arizona. So this is over there. This is Vi over there in why am I spacing, guys? What's it called over there on the west side?
You're in Glendale?
Yes, Glendale, thank you. It's over there in Westgate. So this is the one where we're gonna have the, you know, the Mattel theme park over here, the resort. You guys see there's the concert venue, the amphitheater. This will be the largest pool ever built here in Arizona. So this is what they're talking about. This is gonna be the largest resort. It's a $1 billion project when it's all said or done. Hundreds of people will be working there. They're looking at a Vegas-style resort, 1,100 rooms, the theme park, nightclub, amphitheater, restaurants, the pool, slated to open in the fall of 2024. So they're looking at the fall of next year. So again, some of this stuff, like why do we show you these? Why am I showing you downtown? Number one, you want to know what's going on if people are asking you about it. And also, like we talk about Taiwan Semiconductor in these, there will be hundreds of people that are working here. So this is going to affect where people live, investors that want to buy around there, new construction that's happening. So these are the things you want to pay attention to. This is changing the landscape here in Tempe. Anyone see this one on the South Pier? So this will be a nice giant Ferris wheel on the south side, just there on the south side of the bridge. So it's going to be on the south side of Tempe Town Lake. They're going to build a total of 7 towers over there, guys, just right off the bridge. So 2,500 units of apartments, but look at how they're doing a little different. Oh, each tower is going to be something different. So I think it's 3 towers of apartments, then they're going to have condos, senior living tower, office, and retail. And so again, with that area down there, so this is going to be right off the bridge, and it's called Central Green. It's going to include the Ferris wheel, fountain shows in the lake, and a concert venue down here as well. Phase 1 will be completed at some point in 2025, and they expect the entire project to be completed in 2026. So leading the country in new industrial construction, so this is the 3rd straight quarter. So you can see we're number 1, I think it's Dallas, if I remember right, is number 2. Yep. And then you see it drops. And drops massively from there. So you've got 2 big ones, starts dropping precipitously there. Southern California declined for the first time in 20 years. And Buckeye is leading the valley with this industrial. So again, we've got companies coming here, industrial construction, manufacturing jobs. So this is bringing more people for the inventory we don't have already. It's bringing more jobs. That's going to continue to help the growth here. But these are some of the stuff we're looking at. This is not stopping. This is not slowing down. So here's an aviation one. Unical Aviation moved its headquarters from to Glendale from California. So this is another one of those examples. Like you see, we're seeing these companies move out of California, and that's why I put it in here, into Arizona. They're not the only one. They weren't the first one. They're not going to be the last one. But they make aviation and aerospace parts. This is another big growing industry here in Arizona for us. So this is going to employ, again, with the jobs and what we're seeing of where people are going, where investors want to be, 250 people when this is going to be completed. And this will be completed here within the next year. Again, with the industrial, so the Google data center, construction finally began on that last month. You guys see this over there off of Elliott and Sossaman. I didn't put it up here, but I believe that's where it's at. So phase 1 is going to be complete by the end of 2025. It's a $1 billion project, up to 200 new jobs is what they're looking at there. Some of these are agreements that they have with the city of Mesa. So they had to start construction last month. They have to be complete by 2025. They have to have an average of $65,000 per employee average salary in there. And the entire thing must be done by 2030. When I say must, because they are getting government money, tax breaks, and grants. And because of that, they must meet all of these criteria. Two last things, I think Taiwan Semi, you guys saw it, we had a delay. They're supposed to open in 2024. They're pushing it to 2025. The reason they're giving is the lack of qualified workers in the area. So they're saying they have specialized equipment, specialized technicians that need to be there. They have started to send over, and they're going to send a total of 500 Taiwanese technicians to train local workers to set up that equipment. And look at this. This is interesting where I don't know if you guys knew this. So 66% of their customers for Taiwan Semi is in North America, and the Arizona plant is going to be the primary supplier to Apple for all the iPhones and MacBooks. So once this is up and running here in North Phoenix, that plant will supply the vast majority of all the chips and all your iPhones that you all have right now. So now the plan is for the first plant to open in 2025, second plant in 2026, and have a total when they're done of up to 4,000 employees. Okay, last slide, guys. Additional news and projects, just quickly on some of these. Arizona Grand used to be our biggest one before Vi came. So it's going to be expanded and remodeled. They're going to add 460 new rooms, and over there off of Baseline, so close to Baseline, they're going to add a whole food, beverage, kind of entertainment district. So a little outdoor area where you can walk around and get all this stuff down here, a little nightclub, restaurants, the whole deal. And they're going to add 190 apartments on the backside. These continue, we touch on these every time. NRS Logistics, so another semiconductor supplier, Casa Grande's, get all of them down there. They're all coming down there. We've got the rail lines that stop over there, plus the I-10, plus semiconductor facilities between there all the way up to Taiwan Semi. Intel right here in Chandler. Those additional suppliers come in. They continue to come in, and they're all centered around this area down here in Casa Grande. We talked about Eloy last time, where they started to expand there because they're looking for affordable housing. These folks down here in Casa Grande and in Eloy know they've got to have workers. Their workers can't be hour and a half away. They're trying to find places where their workers can live. And so they're going to Casa Grande and Eloy. Those suppliers are the ones that are moving down there and opening down there. Fiesta Mall, now been demolished. Not sure if that's completely finished or they're still into it. Coyotes Arena, so voted down in Tempe. So we'll see where it is. Some people are like, what about that Fiesta Mall location? So we'll see if anything comes of that. That's a real discussion. Yeah, the president was asked about it, the CEO was asked about it, and he said, maybe, we'll see. And then this is, you guys, I've never played pickleball. I hear about it all the damn time. And this isn't necessarily, but it's just, look at what we're seeing here. So there's like these dedicated facilities. So like one, it took an anchor store at Arizona Mills. We saw another huge one open up in Glendale. There's another one opening up over here by Mesa Gateway. And these are just dedicated pickleball facilities. So apparently it's, the fastest growing thing right now, and they're building these dedicated facilities all across the valley. So for those of you that are into that or saw it, I just saw all these facilities open up and thought it was interesting, to say the least. Any questions, guys? Thanks for sticking around with all of this. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.